How's it going, everybody? Welcome into the Skyline Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Jack Hartman, joined, as always, by my good friend, my co-host on the West Coast, Nick Norman. Nick, how you doing today, man?
I'm doing really well, Jack. We're in the heat of summer. The USA won their first World Cup game, got their second one loading today. Hyped for that. Just the US, I feel like, in the Olympics and the World Cup in the past, like we have our moments in certain areas where we dominate, where like basketball, we dominate. We have certain athletes where it's like, oh yeah, for certain spots in the Olympics, like yes, but like World Cup, it feels like kind of like hockey when the US won at hockey. What was it last year in the Winter Olympics? And it's like the US beat Canada. We're not supposed to be that good at hockey, like Russia, Canada. Like, I feel like when the US overachieves is when I'm like, I'm an American and I'm repping the US and we're like doing the damn thing because it's like hockey, not our jam. Soccer, like pretty low on the totem pole for US. Like the MLS is like far down the ranks of professional sports teams here in the US. But like considering us looking as good as we have so far in game one, like it feels good. It feels good right now, Jack. How are you doing?
Yeah, for sure. I enjoyed Team USA's win last week. Looking forward to watching them play Australia here in a few hours as of us recording this. And yeah, it's fun. We're in the summer, and the New York Knicks just won the NBA Finals. That was really really cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a Knicks fan, but as a Syracuse fan, and Carmelo Anthony being there for a long time, the Knicks always sort of had a soft spot in my heart. And also, it's always cool to see the teams that it feels like this is never going to happen. To see it happen, and the everything that has come with that. New York City is my favorite city in the world. I've been there quite a few times and just love my time there. Used to live right outside of New York City. So anyway, it's been really cool to see the celebration and stuff like that, and how awesome that has been for the whole city and for New York fans everywhere. But yeah, we've got some football stuff to talk about, of course, since we are doing this, and we're gonna finally talk about the Brendan Sorsby situation, to sort of walk through the peculiarities of that. Um, we will then talk about some of the teams that it's like, hey, he's in the supplemental draft. Who should be thinking about this? And but before we do that, we're going to do some immaculate grid. So Nick, if you want to pull that up, we can get
I
right
got
into this.
it. And this is a good one. I'm excited about this one. I got my Steelers. I got 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Like, these are some good ones, man.
Mm-hmm.
There's a player that pops to mind that I hate that is immediate for Steelers Patriots, that being Gunnar Olszewski. He was awful as a Steeler. He had a freaking sideline toe drag catch on a freaking kickoff so that we didn't get the ball out of bounds on the kickoff. I wanted to tear him limb from limb. There's rarely been a player that I thought was so bad and kept his job so long that I legitimately wanted to rip his head off every time he touched the football. It was bad.
Oh man,
But anyway, good if we go with Gunner first.
sounds good to me.
3%.
Look at that neck, dude.
Oh
That
my
neck is
God.
as wide as his head, if not wider.
Oh man. Yep. Looks like a linebacker right now. He looks kind of like Clay Matthews in a way, if I'm
A
honest.
little bit.
Or AJ Hawk. He looks more AJ Hockey, actually. Yeah. I'm seeing Patriots. I'm seeing Stephen Ridley for the Patriots for 1,000-yard rushing year. And for Patriots Steelers. Stephen Ridley. There we go. Moving along.
I'm seeing, it's probably the obvious one, but Brandon Cooks for Patriots and Rams.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's think. Is there anything else? Aqib Talib actually also fits this.
Mm-hmm. Odell Beckham Jr. fits for Rams and
Dolphins.
Dolphins,
Yeah.
which Jalen Ramsey is going to be the obvious one there. So that one actually might not be too bad.
Jalen Ramsey or Minka Fitzpatrick for this one. Did Lamar Miller have a 1,000-yard rushing season with the Dolphins? I think Lamar Miller did. Or was it the other running back? You know who actually had a 1,000-yard rushing season with the Dolphins was Raheem Mostert.
Yeah.
That was in recent years, but that
Weird.
happened. Larry Zonka back in the 70s could go with Zonka. Mercury Morris, Jim Kick. I don't know if either of those other guys had 1,000-yard seasons. I think Mercury Morris did, but I don't know that I want to risk a Mercury Morris poll immediately. I'll wait on that. Chargers, I'm seeing Melvin Gordon. Was LaDainian Tomlinson, obviously.
That's the obvious one.
Right. Austin Eckler, I don't think ever had a 1,000-yard rushing season. Michael Turner, I don't think had a 1,000-yard rushing season with the Chargers, but he did with the Falcons, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
The 90s, I couldn't tell you who the Chargers running back was in the 90s. 80s, it was Dan Fouts and the Air Coryell offense. 70s, I don't know another Chargers running back that deep in my bag. I think
did Hampton do it this last year?
No, he was too injured.
Okay, the year before that, did J.K. Dobbins do it?
No, he was too injured.
I'm good with Gordon. LT is the obvious one, so let's do Gordon.
Yeah. Melvin Gordon and Melvin Ingram, both former Chargers. 16%. I feel okay with that.
Not bad.
Yeah. Chargers, Steelers, Mike Williams did both of these teams. Trey Turner, actually, if I'm honest, Trey Turner. He was a guard, played.
Damn.
There we go. I know my Steelers, man. Minka Fitzpatrick's the obvious one. Jalen Ramsey's another one. Are there any receivers, running backs that pop to mind for me? Rams, Chargers. Are there any LA dudes?
Did at the end of his career, did Eric Weddle ever go to the Rams?
He did. I like that one. That's a really good shout. Let's go with Weddle.
Oh, dang.
He did.
My bad.
He did. All good.
I thought that was a pretty good poll. I'm not gonna
lie. Rams, Dolphins. I feel like the quote unquote obvious ones of Jalen Ramsey and I forget what the other one you said was, but Ryan Fitzpatrick also fits this. I don't know how many people know about Rams Ryan Fitzpatrick, but
that's true. When they were in St.
like
Louis.
It's going to be pretty high.
I don't think it would be as high as Ramsey or Beckham.
Okay, let's just go with Fitzpatrick then. 12%. Yeah. That's fine.
Oh, look at that beard.
Yep.
Magnificent.
Yep. Only James Harden is even comparable. Dolphins.
We could go Brandon Cooks there for Pats Rams, but again, that feels like an obvious one. Jimmy Garoppolo.
Oh, you know who's actually here is Dave Woodley, the quarterback who took. Was his career only 5 years? Woodley was the quarterback who took the Dolphins to the Super Bowl in '82 and played for the Steelers for a second. Doesn't even have a
headshot.
Let's go. 3%, a little high for David Woodley, I think. But okay, so I think Aqib Talib will be better than Brandon Cooks here.
What about Jimmy G?
Jimmy G, that's a good one. Are there any other funky quarterbacks? I feel like there are other weird quarterbacks that fit this for sure. Testaverde, no. You know who technically fits this, but not really, is Kevin O'Connell. Because Kevin O'Connell played for the Patriots for a second and then worked for the Rams, but didn't play for the Rams.
Yeah,
But
I don't think they would allow
ball
that.
knowledge. Ball knowledge. I like Aqib Talib, I think, more than Brandon as far as a number.
Nice.
Percent. There we go.
That's strong.
And then we got one left. What was the name of homeboy who Mike Ditka traded his entire draft for, who was like so good as a running back and then had to go to the CFL? Why am I blanking? He was so good. He
from Dallas, right?
No. In the 99 draft, they drafted out of Ditka traded an entire draft when he was working on the Saints. And this running back was so good. Why am I blanking on his name? With the 08 Dolphins, what were the other guys on that team? They were running the Wildcat in 2008. The Arkansas Razorbacks had the Wildcat like up and coming in 05, 06, 07.
Right.
Do you remember anybody on that Arkansas team? Maybe it was one of those guys.
Well, Darren McFadden, but he was Raiders.
He was a Raider.
He was the main guy. He was the guy taking the snaps in that Wildcat.
Right. No, it was. Oh, I'm feeling so silly. You know who actually for the Dolphins was I'm just trying to think of any Dolphins running back.
I mean, if you're just looking for any, Mostert, Achane, you mentioned Larry Zonka.
Yeah. I feel like I like Mostert, even though it was relatively recent. I feel like people don't
Sounds
think
good to me.
Mostert's that good. 6%.
Is that 6?
We rock with it. That's good.
That was not bad.
I want to see some of our lovely stats.
Obviously, Weddle had to be the highest for Rams Chargers.
Let's see Weddle. Was there anybody else for that one? Verify. Let's look at Pro Football Reference. John Hadel, Jim Everett. I didn't know Jim Everett. Come on, add. Baby. Jim Everett, John Hadel. Any years, any recent? Sony Michel, Gerald Everett, actually. We could have got that for sure. Not that many dudes. Gerald Everett or Sony Michel. I do vaguely remember Sony Michel as a Charger. Gerald Everett, I do remember for a second, for sure.
Sure.
Not that bad.
Okay.
Let's find. I just want to look at a couple of the other ones here. Steelers, or no, Dolphins. I want to look at their 1,000-yard rushers. Achane, Mostert, Jay Ajayi, Lamar Miller, do it. Reggie Bush. I was thinking Ricky Williams. That's who I was thinking. Who's obviously a superstar. Ronnie Brown. He's the one during that 08 season who was taking a lot of the snaps out of Wildcat. More Ricky Williams.
Mercury Morris barely did it.
He did. I was right. I was gonna go Mercury Morris. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The other Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Yep.
Lamar Smith. Yeah, Mercury Morris and Zonka, and then the Ricky Williams. Ronnie Brown was who I was thinking. I think he went to Auburn, maybe. I don't remember clearly. Bush would have been a good shout. I just want to check on a couple more of these. Let's see Steelers, Dolphins. Joey Porter, yes. Timmons, I don't remember being on the. Mike Wallace, yes. Mike Wallace would have been a great one. Earl Morrill, yep. David Woodley, that's who we picked. Balaj. He was so bad. Jonnu Smith, just this last year on the Patriots.
If I'm being honest, I knew that he was, and I could not for the life of me come up with his name because he was so bad for Pittsburgh that they stopped playing him.
Oh my God, he was bad. It was bad, man. I don't. Oh, this is his rushing stats. 70 yards rushing.
Receiving.
Balaj.
Still, okay, his receiving.
Claypool, Eric Green, the tight end.
He had 38 receptions for 222 yards.
Deshaun Elliott, Landon Robert. A lot of crossover because of
Melvin Ingram down there.
Yeah, lots of crossover because what's his name? Who was the Dolphins head coach and now is with the Vikings. Flores was head coach of the Dolphins, then then coached the linebackers in Pittsburgh. So that's why we got a lot of crossover.
I don't know that Lawrence Timmons did a year with the Dolphins after he left Pittsburgh.
I didn't either. Evander Hood, Justin Hood. Joey Porter had his best season as a Dolphin. Man, there are some good players there. Any other ones that I want to look at for a second? Let's see other 1,000-yard rushing seasons for the Patriots.
James White's probably on there, right? He had that 1 year.
No. James White was just receiving too much. Stevenson, Blunt, not a lot. Ben Jarvis, Green Ellis, the law firm.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Corey Dillon and Antwain Smith had a 1,000-yard rushing season in Tom Brady's first year starting. Edwards, Curtis Martin, yep. Lot of jank names. Sam Cunningham, brother of Randall Cunningham. Jim Nance. Wow. Now that we're here, I just want to look at the Chargers 1,000-yard rushers to see if I missed any. Melvin Gordon, Ryan Matthews. That's the running back that I was thinking. LT did
it many
times. Marion Butts, Gary Anderson. I could not tell you this Gary Anderson. I know the kicker Gary Anderson. Paul Lowe, Chuck Muncie. I know the name because the Air Coryell years, but a lot of crazy names there. I feel okay with Melvin Gordon. Only had one.
Yeah,
look at just one. Crazy.
Only had one, and he made all that fuss about not getting paid.
He was an insane college player, though. I know we're going to be talking about college here in a minute, but he had, what was it? He had a record-breaking game that didn't the record get broken one game later by somebody else, right? A 300-yard rushing game.
So I just saw recently, Melvin Gordon, Monte Ball, and Jonathan Taylor were all at Wisconsin at the same time.
Really? Wow.
They were all at Wisconsin at the same time. And so there was a year, it was a weird Big Ten year. Wisconsin played Nebraska in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State was down, Michigan was down, Michigan State was down, Penn State was down. And Wisconsin won the Big Ten East. Or, they were doing the leaders, legends thing, whatever. Anyway, and so they played Nebraska. This was early on of Nebraska being in the Big Ten, and they played them in the Big Ten championship. And those three running backs in that game combined for 600 rushing yards. It was insane. Seriously, Melvin Gordon had 279 rushing yards on 25 carries and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Those Wisconsin teams could crank out some rushing totals, man. Between Gordon and then Jonathan Taylor, I've heard people saying, I think it's a great point. Jonathan Taylor, if he was a running back in any other era, would be Madden cover athlete, most famous dude in Wisconsin, clearly superstar. But because we're in this era where it's oh yeah, running back you draft in the second round. Oh yeah, the running backs are good, but you don't draft them high. They got Melvin. Now I'm saying Melvin Gordon, mixing them up. Jonathan Taylor, they drafted him in the second round, and he averaged 2,000 yards a season in college for 3 years and was just insane.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh yeah, get him in like pick 40. And it's like, what do you mean
Right.
pick 40 for a great running back like that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just insane.
Yeah. Well, hey, let's talk about Brendan Sorsby. So, we don't need to walk through all of the details of what happened. He was betting against the rules of betting, according to the NCAA, and against the rules of all sports, and that he was betting on his own team when he was at Indiana. Goes to Cincinnati, balls out at Cincinnati for a couple of years. This offseason transfers to Texas Tech, gets a boatload of NIL money from Texas Tech, checks himself into rehab for gambling addiction. So he and Texas Tech sort of announced that this is going on, makes the NCAA go like, wait, what is happening? And they get involved. They remove his eligibility. They say that he's never playing college football again. He sues, wins the lawsuit. The Big 12 decides, after lots of discourse and teams and universities threatening to not play Texas Tech this year, the conference sues Texas Tech over his eligibility, and he decides he's going to the supplemental draft. So that is the quick of it in terms of the timeline. That said, Nick, I want to have a more deep philosophical conversation about this, and I know that you have, or maybe you still do, dabble a little bit in the sports betting, or at least, hey, this would be a fun money line, to put together without whether you pull the trigger on it or not.
Sure.
I've never downloaded one of the sports books because I just don't trust myself, basically, and don't want to even open up the door for that to turn into something that I don't want it to be. But I think we need to sit here and we need to have an honest conversation about all of these sports leagues now are making exuberant amounts of money by working with these sports books. And this is probably the highest profile situation of things being wrong with the betting. Obviously, there's been some stuff in the NBA that's been pretty bad. But there have been other guys like Jameson Williams who's gotten suspended because he bet on a different sport but did it on the Lions facility, like that sort of thing. I think we need to have an honest conversation and say, like, hey, NCAA, NFL, NBA, what did you expect was going to happen when you let this become a legal thing? And you made it so that, you have a partnership with them, or ESPN launches their own sports book, and all of the conversation and discourse about things, the first thing is, what's the money line? Like that's, I want to know, that's sort of where I've been thinking about this. Obviously Brendan Sorsby bet on his own games. He should not be allowed to play college football, full stop. Turn the page, start the new paragraph. Did we think this wasn't going to happen?
This was definitely going to happen. We're in an era, and we're still in an emerging time with sports gambling. It's been a couple of years, but I feel like it's still been an area in our society that still doesn't have clear regulations across the board, still doesn't have guardrails to be able to have set guidelines and boundaries for how to operate. Where the NFL's had issues with Jameson Williams, like you've said, with Calvin Ridley, where they've gambled in a variety of ways and gotten a variety of punishments. But it's not like there is a set standard of, you do this, this is going to happen. And I think that because we're still figuring out how we feel about it, about how these different leagues are operating with it, I just think we kind of need to look at it at the big picture of how these players are being motivated. And that's kind of how I think we need to start talking about college football players, because NIL has obviously changed things in college football. It's drastically changed the landscape compared to what it was, or Alabama dominating, being able to have rosters that were 3 levels deep, and like they could lose a player and they'd have a million backups that were all 5 stars that were amazing after that because they could just stockpile players. Now, because these players are getting money for what they're doing with their NIL deals, for being functionally professional athletes, even though they're college athletes, I think we need to ask ourselves, hey, do we need to do something about making sure that gambling's a complete no-no and that you couldn't bribe these players enough, you couldn't do anything to try and motivate these players to throw games, to gamble, where like this suspension, it's a gambling situation with Sorsby, but this isn't necessarily a throwing games situation. A throwing games situation like what potentially happened in the NBA with Terry Rozier, with what happened with the Blazers head coach, that I think offers a bigger question of how are these people motivated. But I think because we're in an era where NIL happened and now these players are getting paid and sports gambling's becoming a thing that's becoming so ubiquitous that now people are more invested than ever with regards to like, oh, I care about these games. I care about who wins or loses, not because I'm a fan, but because I have financial incentive. That because both things happen at once, I think that players still don't know how much of a bribe actually would matter to them if it would sway them to throw games. And that's scary because these players now are getting paid, but are they getting paid enough to where they don't feel like, oh, yeah, let me just like throw this game for an extra $50,000 bet or side hustle or anything like that? And I think that it would, in all honesty, it would probably be best just across the board with anyone that is an athlete at any level between college and pro should just not gamble at all as far as sports gambling goes. Like I think it should just be a big no. Just even though I feel like everybody should have the right to do things the way they want to. But like if we talk about these college athletes, Brendan Sorsby obviously bopped around a couple schools, and I'm sure he has a lot of connections with Cincinnati, with Indiana, and now some with Texas Tech. Even when he's not at these schools anymore, he could still get insider info to where it's like he's not betting on his own team right now with Texas Tech, but he might know a coach on the coaching staff at Indiana. He might know a player position coach at Cincinnati. And it's like, hey, here's this insider info about our quarterback's injured this week. And like, oh, yeah, you should bet the under because our game plan is going to be this sort of way. And I think that basically any athlete at the college football level, whether it's on your own team or another team or even another sport, because it's like being at Cincinnati, you're a football player, but you shouldn't be able to, I think, bet on basketball or other games where it's like you might know those athletes, you might have those connections just in the wide world of being an athlete at that school. And I think just a broad no would probably be in their best interest, and a really hard line where it's like, hey, I think that it should just be a broad no, like it's not allowed, you're not allowed to bet on anything. And if it's a different sport, you get I'm just philosophizing here of what the rules could be. If it's a different sport, you get suspended for 6 games. If it's college football, you get suspended a year. And if it's your own team, whether for or against, you're permanently like suspended from the NCAA. And just having that be what it is. Like it's just like, no, you're not allowed to do this. So it's not like oh, you're allowed to bet on college basketball. You're allowed to bet on pro football. It's like, no, if you're doing this, you get this. If you're doing that, you get that. And if you're doing this, just zero tolerance. And I think that having those guidelines and everybody knowing them would make it so much more straightforward. Because I think the vagueness of what happened with Sorsby, like it's just so complicated and we don't know all the details. We don't know what sort of bets he was placing on the team. We don't know when necessarily he placed them as far as during specific games in the season. Like we just don't know at this point. And I think that makes how this played out even more intimidating to try and figure out our opinion because we don't have all the details. So
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
where
I
I'm at.
think I think that it's just the reason that this isn't just obvious in black and white is because there isn't collective bargaining right now in college sports. Like because there's collective bargaining in Major League Baseball. When Pete Rose was accused of gambling on baseball, the commissioner was able to give him a lifetime ban from the sport. And it's like, guess what? Because you play Major League Baseball, you're under this agreement, and we're allowed to do this, like, I mean, it's why in the NFL, someone could have a monster game and then they get randomly drug tested, 2 days later. That's how it goes because you're under this collective bargaining agreement. Because there isn't in college sports, you can do something, and what ramifications are there? Apparently none if you just file a lawsuit with the right lawyer. Like, we thought it was bad when we were seeing, things like Trinidad Chambliss, suing the NCAA so that he can get an extra year of eligibility. And we were like, oh, this is really bad. This shows that college sports are in a really bad shape. It's like, I would take a million of those over a situation like this, like where you can commit the gravest of all, sins in sports, which is betting, like fixing games, whether you fix them or not, but still, that's the thing that gets called into question. And yeah, like it's fine, I think because gambling is so prevalent, we already see, like, it used to be a joke, like Scott Van Pelt would do on the late Sports Center bad beats, like related to the money lines. Like that used to be like a joke about like, oh man, the spread for this game was 25.5 points and this team was up by 28, but this team randomly decided to kick a field goal as time expired and it hit the under instead, it's like, oh, that's terrible. Well, gambling is so prevalent now that all over the place you have people that are convinced that these sports are fixed. And it's like, I'm not. I like to think that they aren't. I think that, sports are way too wildly unpredictable for things to be fixed, right? But like we have the jokes about like, oh, the NFL script writers and everything like that, and it's like with how prevalent gambling is in sports now, how far away are we from the NFL, and college football, like the perception being that they're like the WWE? Like seriously, and if so, that's a dead product. There are people who still follow WWE and enjoy it, and that's fine. But for guys like us who are genuine sports fans, like we're like, that's a waste of our time. Like if I want to watch something fictional, I'm going to watch some, drama on Netflix, right? Like that's not, I'm not going to go to sports for fictional. So yeah, I think it's just really concerning about gambling just in general. I think it's really concerning that we have these college age kids that we're giving millions of dollars that, yeah, like, I mean, what we know right now is that Brendan Sorsby did not bet more than $90,000. But could you imagine if the $5 million he was getting from Texas Tech, if he had blown all of it gambling already? Like seriously, and how horrendous of a situation that would be. So yeah, I mean, and the thing is, I'm saying all of this stuff. The cat's already out of the bag. Like you can't walk it back. These sports books are trying to a little bit, like they're trying to limit prop bets. There was a situation in Major League Baseball of a lot of bets being placed on a first pitch ball, for a couple pitchers for the Cleveland Guardians, and so they're like, okay, well, let's get rid of the prop bets, so something like that, can't happen where it's like one pitch, you can make 25 grand because I threw a ball in the dirt instead of throwing a strike, but even still, like, it's legal now. What are you going to do? There's nothing that can be done about it. And I'm concerned, I hope that this situation with Brendan Sorsby is a way that these things get taken care of instead of being like, oh man, we dodged a bullet there. All right, well, continue on, and who knows what happens next. But
and I think that there's also with gambling, I'm sure you've heard this like way of putting it generally with gambling of we just want to protect people from themselves. Like everybody should be allowed to do what they need to do, but like gambling's a thing where it's like we want to protect you from you harming yourself. Like you can gamble and lose all of your money and you're going to hurt yourself. So we don't even want to give you that option. When you are a professional athlete, there is a complete separate level to hurting yourself, because these athletes who are millionaires, like who have a ton of money, who are young getting all this money, they have a bunch to lose because of that. But we're also protecting them from themselves if we just outright ban gambling for them, in that if they start gambling and lose all this money or rack up a bunch of debt, then that's when situations like what happened with the NBA, where it's like, is the mob trying to come in and say, you owe us all this money, we need you to fix games? And this like reciprocal sort of, you dug yourself in this hole and caused all these problems, and now is when you start fixing games and all of this shady stuff starts happening. We want to protect these professional athletes, these college athletes, from, hey, you get in a situation like Brendan Sorsby where like he had addiction problems with gambling and had to go into rehab for it. That is a serious thing, and that's something that it takes a lot of courage to be able to go to rehab of your own will, and I commend him for that. But imagine though if he had lost so much money on sports gambling where it's like, oh, he lost 3 million of the $5 million, and now he's in debt to these people, and now he has to start throwing games to try and make up this debt, or funky stuff starts happening. We don't even want to put people in this position, and we don't want to make the system vulnerable or the people vulnerable. And I think just getting rid of it altogether, as far as banning it all for all these athletes, is the best way to protect the sports product and the players.
I totally agree. Well, let's move on to something that's more fun, talking about this situation. So Brendan Sorsby did declare for the supplemental draft. Nick, let's just sort of go back and forth, just one by one, a few teams that we think like, hey, this would be a place that, I think should at least put a bid in. The way the supplemental draft system works, for those of you that don't know, all teams that won 6 or fewer games this last year are in one tier. All teams that, did not make the playoffs but had better than 6 wins are in a tier, and all teams that made the playoffs are in a tier. And, every team has an opportunity to say like, hey, we're willing to give up our 3rd round pick in the next year's draft for this. They go through all of that, and then tiebreaker for, highest pick, it goes down to, which tier your team is in. The reason that this is interesting, the supplemental draft with him, is because he is a highly touted recruit. He's very talented. If none of this had happened and he had played this next year at Texas Tech and had the success that we expected that he and they would have had, he certainly would have been considered for a 1st round draft pick, probably. There would have been discourse about that, at least in the middle of the season. Where he ended up, who knows? But he was one of those guys that was going to be coming out in a very highly touted quarterback draft class this next year. So that said, Nick, give me one team that you think, this would be a team that should consider it.
I think sneaky, the Dolphins should consider it. Their quarterback on their roster that they're trying out is Malik Willis. He's never played for the Dolphins before. He obviously has a connection with Jeff Hafley and the coaching staff, playing with them in Green Bay last year before Hafley got this job. But Malik Willis, they didn't fully commit to. They gave him a big contract, but it was far smaller than even like talking about Sam Darnold or Baker Mayfield's contract. It was smaller than both of those, and it's a far cry from the $50+ million contracts. But I think to be able to take a shot when the Dolphins are going to be bad this year, you could have a high pick next year, but you have other teams like the Cardinals that are trying to be bad too. And like we don't know the cost for what Brendan Sorsby is going to turn out to be in the supplemental draft. But if you could get him for a mid-round pick in the Dolphins, I think that would be an interesting proposition, even if they are trying to be in the gutter and get Arch Manning or the top quarterback in this class. I think they're interesting here.
Yeah, I think I could certainly see that. I think that the thing about this is the teams that were the 6 wins and under teams, they're likely in the Arch Manning, Dante Moore, sweepstakes.
Right.
And so
Mhm.
with that, are you willing to give up a pick that might help you acquire what you need to win the sweepstakes? Or, you know, hey, you do get him now, but also you have the opportunity to draft Arch Manning, and then we're like, okay, well then, it feels wasted. So I actually think that the middle section, the teams that had more than 6 wins but didn't make the playoffs, are really the teams that I'm going to be most intrigued to see what they do with this. So one of the teams that fits that for me is Minnesota.
Mhm.
You brought in Kyler Murray. Obviously, by bringing in Kyler Murray, that shows sort of how you're feeling about JJ McCarthy right now. It doesn't mean that he won't improve, but that sort of shows how you're feeling about him right now. I think you also know that Kyler Murray isn't really the answer. He's the type of guy that, again, you bring in to compete with JJ McCarthy. Um, but I think there's a world that Brendan Sorsby, after 1 year of being third on the depth chart, could actually be better than what you would potentially get with JJ McCarthy after another year, and Kyler Murray after then you have to make a decision about paying him. So I kind of like Minnesota.
Mhm. Yeah, I think Minnesota's a good shout. And they're a team that I think has been trying to take swings on quarterbacks and wants quarterbacks with big arms who can raise the ceiling for this roster. And Sorsby has really good tools. So I think that would make a fit in that spot. Or Kyler Murray, for being as small as he is, has a really strong arm and can push the ball down the field.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Sorsby would be what JJ McCarthy they wanted out of him in a way. But McCarthy's still on that roster, and that's still a question
Right.
mark, a low level question mark at this point. But
Yeah.
Minnesota's a good shout. In
Yeah.
that
What's
same
another
vein,
one?
I got the Colts. I think the Colts, they gave Daniel Jones a bag, but Daniel Jones then tore up his Achilles, I believe, or was it
Mm-hmm.
ACL this time? I think it was ACL this time, Achilles last
Achilles.
time.
I thought it was Achilles. I think it's Achilles.
He's torn both. He's torn both, but this he tore up some part of his leg this time, and Daniel Jones got paid like $50 million by the Colts, and he played like half a season with them and looked really good, but then they were terrible without him. Brendan Sorsby played at Indiana. He played at Cincinnati in that Midwest area. I think that he will make a lot of sense there for a team that doesn't necessarily, they don't have a first round pick to draft a quarterback next year because of the Sauce Gardner trade. They have a team that wants to win now with another quarterback that they want to play now, but could fall apart. And so you need another quarterback to back them up. This is a team that isn't going to have a shot to get a high tier quarterback, like you're saying, with Arch Manning, with Dante Moore. And I think this is a roster that really wants to push their chips into the middle in terms of like they want to win now. Even though they didn't make the playoffs last year, they were trying their damnedest to win. They signed Daniel Jones to a small deal last year, but they traded for Sauce Gardner. They brought together a roster that was really talented. They drafted well this last year. They want to win, and I think Brendan Sorsby kind of bridges the gap there.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that one a lot. Or excuse me, Indianapolis was definitely a team that I was thinking about. I think
Mhm.
now, again, it'll be harder once you get into the teams that were playoff teams this last year. I think your Pittsburgh Steelers should make an offer. Aaron Rodgers is here. I mean, it has to be the last year. I think he's said that he's expecting this to be the last year, but man, if you're Pittsburgh, you have to want this to be the last year. Um, and behind him, like, yeah, you've got Mason Rudolph. Okay, you've got Drew Aller, who you drafted this last year, who you've already said, or it's our Mike McCarthy's basically already said we have to teach it, like, make him unlearn everything he already knows. I know that there are a lot of Steeler fans that want to see Will Howard get a shot. My mentality is, you guys are fans, you're not coaches, and
Mhm.
executives, and if they haven't given him a shot, I think that there's a reason for that, you know. Not everyone will be Tom Brady, you know. In fact, only one of them has ever been Tom Brady. You know, I mean, Brock Purdy is like, I mean, as close as you can get, but even still, he's what, 7 Super Bowls short of where Brady is. Um, but anyway, um, and the thing that, you know, we've talked about, Steelers fans have talked about, you and I have talked about, is the Steelers are never going to be bad enough to be able to actually have a high enough pick in the first round to get one of these high level quarterbacks. This is the opportunity,
Mhm.
you know, like this is as close. It's a weird, unique situation to have this opportunity, but it is a close opportunity. And I think that it would be wise for Pittsburgh to put an offer out there and see, because I think that he is certainly better than Drew Aller. I think he's certainly better than Will Howard. I think he's probably better than Mason Rudolph, and maybe if you want to say he's not, he certainly has a higher ceiling than Mason Rudolph does. And I think that it could be, you know, you talked about Indiana and Cincinnati, you know, Pittsburgh is, you know, north south wise, same longitude there, right? So I think that could be a wise investment by the Steelers.
Right. It's just a really crowded quarterback room, but I'd be happy to throw Mason Rudolph overboard for Brendan Sorsby. I think that the cost to doing business is going to be interesting, because if teams value Brendan Sorsby as a second or a third round pick in terms of the player, I think that's okay. That makes a lot of sense. But Brendan Sorsby, the dude, with these allegations, with the drama that happened with him having to go to rehab, with the NCAA suspending him, with what was happening in court because of him, like, could Brendan Sorsby drop to like a fourth round pick? Could he drop to a fifth round pick? If he drops to a fourth or fifth round pick, like, I think teams should be falling all over themselves to, like, even if you're a team that's pretty good, like, I think that you should take a shot on him, where it's like the Rams just did this with Ty Simpson, where they didn't need a quarterback now, but they took a shot on him in the first round. If the
Mm-hmm.
Rams hadn't taken Ty Simpson, I think, like, you shoot your shot with Sorsby, I think, if you're the Rams, but they're not in need of him because of the Simpson situation.
Yeah.
Another team I'll just throw out there, another weird situation, but I think kind of wants to win now, is the Falcons. They got two left-handed dudes,
Yep.
I think. Stefanski coming in his first year, wanting to install a system, has two quarterbacks with major injury issues who are shorter, who don't have the physical tools like that. I think that Sorsby, like, we're talking about Tua and we're talking about Penix. Penix obliterated both of his legs last year. Tua has major concussion issues where it's like one more concussion could end his career. Like, if both of those dudes combined can play an entire season, I'd be impressed. If either of them can play an entire season, I will be shocked. Like, I think you're going to need some quarterback depth there, and I think he's a dude who'd be worthy of a mid-round pick. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that the Falcons, another team that I think's too good to be bad enough for like a top 3 pick, a
Yeah.
team that has a lot of good players. Their defense played great last year. That my issue is like the Pierce situation. I'm saying Michael Pierce
James
Jr.
Pierce.
What's James James Pierce Jr. I'm like, Michael Pierce is the defensive tackle. James Pierce Jr. with his off the field issues, I don't know that they would want to invest another valuable pick into a player with off the field issues right now with what's happening with that. But I
Mm-hmm.
think they're a team that really wants to win and is in a really good spot. Very similar to, I think, the Broncos when they brought in Russell Wilson, where when Broncos brought in Russell Wilson, it was like, they're a team that has everything but just needs the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And Russell Wilson was awful, and the head coach was awful, and Nathaniel Hackett, and so it didn't work out. But I think that this is a Falcons team that has edge rushers they drafted highly, that has safeties that are good, corners that are solid, an offensive line that's played pretty well, receivers that are big and strong and can catch the ball well, a running back who's a superstar. Like, I think that it's pretty well furnished for a good quarterback to come in. It's just they haven't had a good quarterback since Matt Ryan. So that's
Right.
the problem there. But I
Yeah.
think Brendan Sorsby to the Falcons could be a nice mid-tier team fit, like you were saying.
Yeah. I've got two other teams that I'm going to mention together because I think they're in similar situations. These are teams that are in the Arch Manning Dante Moore sweepstakes, and that is Arizona and the New York Jets. Now, here's why I think they should consider it. Because, like you said, there's a chance that a fourth round pick is what it takes for them to get it. And, you know, if you're Arizona, you've got Jacoby Brissett holding out right now. You've got Carson Beck. I mean, if you get Sorsby and you do, you know, Beck for 4 games, Sorsby for 4 games, and, you know, we'll say Brissett for 9 if you work it out with him, you know, like you could get a large enough sample size that you could go, hey, you know what? We're going to have the second overall pick. There are going to be a lot of other teams that are going to want it, and we can get a lot of stuff in return for it. And Brendan Sorsby might be the guy. You know, if you're the Jets, it's a similar thing, but it's Geno Smith, right? Like, you know, like if you can get him for a fourth round pick, what's it hurt to do that? Trot him out for 5 to 7 games, and like see what happens. You know, so I would mention those two teams that I think that could, you know, just to sort of kick the tires on it. You know, put in a bid that you're like, you know, like, yeah, you know, it probably won't go, but if it does, we wouldn't feel like, oh man, like I actually wish we wouldn't have done that, and see what happens because that might work.
Right. The other thing, though, that I think is that you can recoup some value here for Sorsby or for the top 2 or 3 pick that you can get as one of those teams. Where, like, okay, you play Sorsby for 4 or 5 games, you play your other quarterbacks for a handful of games. Sorsby plays well. It's like, okay, do you need to draft a quarterback? But Sorsby plays solid, and it's like, okay, you draft your quarterback, but you can flip Sorsby for a 3rd round pick or something like that. And if you get him on a discount, like we're saying in the 4th round, you can get better draft value than you got him for. And it's like, okay, the gambling allegations are another year in the past. Okay, we've seen him play football at the NFL level now, so it's not a projection of college to the pros. He's been in an NFL locker room now for a year, and he kind of knows how to navigate it a little bit. I think that it could be really wise if it wasn't a disaster, but do we trust the Jets to be like, okay, this quarterback's going to be stable for a couple games, play well? Or could it be that it's like you get Sorsby for a 3rd round pick as the Jets, and he plays awful for 3 games, and it's like, now what do we do? Do we want to keep riding with him, or do we want to draft Dante Moore number 2 overall, and like, what the heck is going on?
Yeah.
And I think the Jets and Cardinals, the issue is they'll probably be too bad to actually have him play decently because they're that bad. So I think it's an
Cardinals,
idea, though.
yes. I don't know about the Jets though. I oddly
Their
I'm
defense is
I'm
just
buying
so bad.
I'm buying some Jet stock because I think that
Okay.
I think that there might be potential there, but we'll talk about that another time. So, all right, Nick, anything else on Brendan Sorsby?
I think this is the most interesting I think if I'm the Steelers GM, like if a 4th round pick does it, then great. Like I'm throwing Mason Rudolph overboard. I'm throwing Will Howard overboard. Like, so, I just don't love Aaron Rodgers either on this team at 42 years old. Like Sorsby, even with the off-field allegations and issues, it's like, man, teams are starved for quarterback, and those mid-tier teams that aren't able to get up high enough are starved for quarterback. And like, man, quarterbacks be driving up the value. So wherever he lands, it's going to be a huge conversation, and we're going to be able to have some good conversation about it.
Definitely. All right. Well, hey, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. You know, here in sort of the dog days of summer, when the football stuff, we were just talking before we, you know, got on sort of planning some stuff for the next few weeks. And I mentioned, like, we don't even have like a big story of some big name player who's holding out, you know, or holding in, you know, at OTAs, you know, like it's honestly pretty boring right now, which honestly isn't. I'm sure for all 32 teams in the commissioner's office, they're okay with that. Um, but that said, yeah, we've got some fun stuff that we'll be doing here, as we hit the summer. But we appreciate you taking the time to listen to us, hear what we had to say about Brendan Sorsby, about betting, and how prevalent that is now, and about what team should be going after him in the supplemental draft. We hope you enjoyed, and we will see you next time. Have a good one, everybody.